Hey y'all, so it's been a while since I've worn the official Jordan-jn2mx bathrobe for a YouTube video, but I don't feel like putting clothes on again just so that I can make a YouTube video. Anyway, the a while ago, it was a few days ago, I did a video called "Let's Talk About the Women Who Want an $80,000 to $100,000 a year man." And what I was commenting on there was the idea that, um, there are these videos, these red pill videos that we see on X and on YouTube and on TikTok, where it's some guy at a club with a microphone interviewing all these cute young women and asking them, how much does a man have to make every year in order to date you? And the young women will say things like $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year. And my point with that was those red pill guys, one, you can't trust it because they can edit those videos to show only the responses that get what they, only what they, the responses that are saying what they want them to say. But even more so, the women they're talking to are extremely young women who are right at the age where they've finally gotten their legal drinking ID, and they're getting extremely young women that are very naive about the world, don't know, don't have much awareness of the world, or really understand very much about relationships. They don't understand very much about how the world works. They tend to think that because they're very, very young, they just entered the sexual marketplace, and all the young studs are falling all over themselves to get their attention. And so they have a very skewed, very imbalanced view of what to expect from relationships, and they think they can command a higher level of a higher level of material value from the men they can get than what they can realistically have. And it's just not realistic to expect. It's just not realistic to use those young women who are very naive. They're naive about what's expected of them in relationships, what they need to bring to the table in a relationship. And not only that, they're even naive about how much things cost. A man does not have to make $80,000 a year to show her a very nice time on a date. But anyway, things like that, they're just naive and they're ill-informed, and it's unfair. And I said what you should really talk to, if you talk to women in their 30s about what they want from a relationship, you really aren't going to hear, oh, he's got to make 80,000 a year, he's got to make 100,000 a year. They know what relationships are actually about, and they will have a better concept of, they will want a man who is that's where they start thinking about things like, or that's where they're going to talk about things like, a man who has some degree of accomplishment in life, is cultured, is educated, is intelligent. All of these things start mattering more. And so I get, of course, this totally asinine dude bro red pill relationship advice. This is like my third take of this video, and I did not bring a cup of water so that I could hydrate after doing the dude bro voice, so I'm not going to do that in this reading. I'm just going to read it in my normal voice. But someone called Bruno-jn2mx says, if you have to go after women in their mid-30s to find a partner, you're not considered an attractive man. And if you're a man in this situation, you have to be very careful in the dating market. You want someone who chooses you because they like you, not because they have to. Getting a girlfriend or wife that's in their early 20s means they choose you at their peak SMV, so they are actually attracted to you. I really believe that you're setting man up for failure with your message here. I'm sorry. Getting a GF or wife shouldn't be considered a, quote, victory. I don't recall actually saying that, but maybe I did. Shouldn't be considered a victory automatically. We must consider the circumstances. That truth must be said, even if it's sad. Okay. First of all, Bruno, I'm going to be 41 very soon. Whether or not I'm attractive to women in their early 20s says absolutely nothing about me, about my viability in the dating market, because women in their mid-30s are a very comfortable and very reasonable dating age range for me and where I'm at in my life. Anyway, you know, folks, I don't like to make, this is not a video about autism, but I am on the autism spectrum, and if you're just joining us, and I bring that up because sometimes I really do wonder if I just have it wrong. You know, like, do I just fundamentally not understand what we're supposed to be getting out of relationships? Because my understanding of relationships, you know, it began when I was small and I saw, you know, Aladdin singing A Whole New World to Princess Jasmine, or I saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and this beautiful relationship between Robin Hood and Maid Marian and all of that. From a very early age, I thought, that is beautiful, and I want the real life version of that. I want to connect with another person that way. That is beautiful. I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to that in life. And I want to find the woman that I'm going to have a connection like that with. That seems very appealing. And I just assumed that's what it was about. And no one really contradicted me in that regard growing up. And now it seems like, you know, I realize that then there's this other way. There's this other way that people do relationships. And this other way that people do relationships, it's kind of symbolized in or summarized in the way it used to be a tradition in more earlier cultures and earlier time periods and different places. More traditional cultures would have this tradition where after a woman's wedding night, she would hang a bloody bed sheet in the window so that all of the villagers and all the townsfolk could see that she had indeed been deflowered. And that was considered like important, like everything. There's that attitude about relationships where it's entirely done as this vehicle to gain social approval. It's not about you being happy. It's about you boldly and nobly and proudly demonstrating that you're living in a way everybody else approves of. And your dating and relationship life becomes this endless world of, you know, grass is always greener, keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. Like it's something like the number one thing that's supposed to matter in your life is what other people think of you, and the main way that you convey to other people that they ought to think of you as a good person is that you are conducting your relationship in a way that they approve of. That, it's weird to me. It is weird as fuck to me, because everything in art and culture and media is all geared towards this highly self-interested concept of love as this vehicle for personal satisfaction and personal joy and personal fulfillment between two people that really love each other, and it's this beautiful magical thing. But somewhere along the way, I missed something. And this is weird when you're autistic. This can be a learning difficulty thing. For me, it manifested in math. You know, when I was in math classes in school, I struggled with, because I would sit there and I would listen to everything the teacher said, and I would see everybody else suddenly start filling in the questions, answering the questions and the equations correctly based on what the teacher just told them. And there were these connections in what the teacher said that I didn't get, that I missed, even though I heard everything and paid attention to everything that was said. There are these abstract principles that didn't communicate to me. And that was very difficult for me a lot of times in school. And I feel like that with relationships. Like, even though there was all of this, I thought we got inundated with endless messages about how endlessly beautiful and wonderful this personal joy between two people, this intimate, deep connection was, what Peter Gabriel called the secret world between woman and man, what Kurt Vonnegut called the aristocracy of two, all of that. What, I thought that was what we were looking for, and that's what we were all excited about. But it turns out that everybody wanted to live their lives in the bloody bed sheet in the window after your wedding night way, where everything is just you proving to society that you lived in a way they approved of. That's what's so odd to me. When I read a statement like, if you have to go after women that are in their mid-30s to find a partner, you're not considered an attractive man. Says who? Who the fuck are you, Nitwit 5000 or whatever your screen name is? Who the fuck are you to make this declaration? How do you know this to be true? And this is what, the only person that needs to find me attractive is the person that I want to be in a relationship with. That's it. No more, no less. You want to talk about setting men up for failure, Bruno? You know what really sets men up for failure? Teaching them to look at the world in the most bitterly cynical, nihilistic, empty way possible. Telling them that the older a woman gets, the less trustworthy she becomes about whether or not she's attracted to you, is absolutely that kind of attitude, that very cynical attitude, that's setting men up for failure. I'll tell you something, Bruno. Years and years ago, I have, the reason I talk about how awful all of this dating advice out there is because I have so much of it in my brain. I went through a period in my life where I got involved with some very slimy, awful people who force-fed me a lot of this red pill dating bullshit. And consequently, I have more of it in my brain than the average person. And being OCD and autistic, I have a tendency to ruminate, and I can't just push things out of my brain like other people can. Other people, they don't like a piece of information, it's gone, done. For me, I have to conquer the information in the objective world in order to triumph over it. That's how, it has to, I have to prove that I'm right about it. I feel this need to prove that I'm right about it, that if something is true, then it must be objectively true, like 2 + 2 = 4. And so my head is full of all of this negative, cynical, dude bro, red pill, manosphere information like this, all of this crackpot bullshit about relationships. And, I can remember years ago being, brooding in a place, a mindset where I was brooding over this and thinking about this in this mindset that he's trying to push on people. And the girl I was seeing, the woman that I was seeing at the time, said, "What do you want out of a relationship?" And I lashed out in that moment and said, "I want a woman who is so goddamn beautiful that every boy that was ever mean to me in high school will have no choice but to bend down and kiss my ass." And that is the mindset. And that's not, I say that, I say that to say that I've, this kind of way of thinking and this mindset has taken me to some very dark and cynical and negative places. And you're not putting good things in a man's mind. Say that a man does find a woman in his mid-30s, that he genuinely connects with, that he genuinely feels a connection with, but because of your bullshit dating advice, he's obligated to discount what her he's obligated to discount her as a trustworthy relationship partner because she's not a highly in demand, daffy headed idiot in her early 20s? Have you seen the men that are stumbling all over themselves to impress those daffy-headed little idiots in their early 20s? They're daffy-headed little idiots too. The kids, people that age, they barely know what to do with their genitalia. And the idea to say that someone ought to place their personal sense of self about how attractive they are on whether or not a bunch of daffy little idiots think they're attractive, that is setting people up for failure. Guess what, Bruno? People don't stay young for very long. It's one of the realities of life. You get to be older a whole hell of a lot longer than you get to be young. So let me ask you this, Bruno. I'm going to be 41 very soon. If I find a woman who's 35 that I connect with, and am I to not consider her sincere and honest with me when she says that she's attracted to me? Am I to just automatically assume that she's settling for me because she can't do better? Because let me tell you something, fuckface. I've been in the mindset where I did all throughout my 30s, where I was connecting with women in their 30s and constantly had this nattering voice in the back of my head that I can't just push out of my head like other people can, telling me things like this: that her SMV, her sexual marketplace value, was low, and that was the only reason she was with me. It made me think less of her. It made me think less of myself. Never mind the fact that a man in his 30s dating women in their 30s is totally reasonable and totally understandable. I'm going to be 41 soon. 35 would be a very reasonable age for me to be dating somebody. And it doesn't mean that I can't trust them when they say they're attractive to me because they're just settling for me. Dude, this asinine, you've got to get rid of. Human beings are not one-size-fits-all entities. Yes, there are common trends that you can associate across sociologically across the whole of men, across the whole of women. We know, for example, we can say with utter certainty which of the two sexes is more sexually is the sex that more consistently initiates sexual encounters. We know that because it's been observed consistently across all peoples and cultures throughout all time that homosexual men are the most sexually active, heterosexual couples are the second most sexually active, and lesbian couples are the least sexually active. And so we know who's initiating, who is doing most of the initiating sexually, biologically. Yes, there are trends that we can observe consistently across peoples, but we are all individual people with our own individual wants, needs, and desires. And when two people sit down to engage one another to find out if they have a connection, they are not reading off of the same script that they've decoded thanks to advice on the internet. They're presenting themselves, one singular person, to another person, one singular person, to find out if they have a connection with each other. They are not doing so on behalf of the entirety of men and on behalf of the entirety of women. And I say that because, guess what? I know women in their 50s that have high standards for what they want from men and will not settle for less. I know women in their 50s who have no standards for men and will take whatever they can get. The fact that someone is in high demand because they are young and awash in hormones and at peak sexual viability is not any indication of how trustworthy they are when they declare themselves to be genuinely attracted to you. What is so galling about this and so revolting about this is that you couch your bullshit in the idea that you're saying this because you think that I'm setting men up for failure. Guess what? Most of being in relationships is about learning to bounce back from failure. That's it. There's a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of heartache, and it's not easy. That's why there's so many books, movies, TV shows, video games, music, everything about how not easy it is. You know, when I was in college, I give you an example. When I was in college, there was this girl that I knew liked me and knew had eyes for me. She was attracted to me, and I remember she had a tattoo of a black widow on her arm, and that stands out in my mind because this was back in the early 2000s, before it was commonplace for women to have so many tattoos that they just look like they're covered in seaweed. But this girl had a black widow tattooed on her arm that stood out in my mind. She's really cute. I thought she was really hot. And she came, one time she tried to get my attention she was skipping down at Berkeley. We call the sidewalk in front of 150 Mass Ave, the Berkeley Beach, and she was skipping down the Berkeley Beach, and she came skipping by me and made eyes at me and bopped me on the top of the head like that and went skipping on. I knew she was into me. I knew she found me attractive, but guess what? Fuckface McGee, or whatever your screen name is. Guess what? I didn't know fuck all about how to relate to somebody like that. I don't know how, I've never known how to strike up a conversation with somebody that gets your attention by bopping you on the head. I've never known how to interact with little, not little girls literally, but little young 21-year-olds or whatever that are, that are old enough to legally have sex, but young enough to still indicate their attraction to somebody by skipping by and bopping them on the head. I don't know how to interact with someone like that. I don't have the words, I don't have the technique, and fuck you up the butt with an AIDS needle if you think you're going to start telling me how to do that. Oh my God, you people are, if you dude bro red pill assholes had any idea what you sound like to the rest of the world with your advice, your endless bullshit advice, you would never advocate a mindset that told other people to value what the entire world thinks about them, because you would not be able to live knowing what the rest of the world thinks about you. But anyway, I digress. Now, my senior year in college, I was about 22 and I connected with a woman who was 29. Where does that fall? Where does that fall? Should have been a blowjob 9,000 or whatever your screen name is. Where does that fall? I was 22, she was 29. By what objective metric does that balance anything out? You know what we connected on? I met her in this class that I was taking on movement, on meditation and body awareness, like, yoga type calisthenics and stuff, or yoga type things that I was studying. It was just it was a credit course I was taking for credit. But we connected because she happened to be laying on the mat next to me. This beautiful Malaysian woman happened to be laying on the mat next to me, and we started chatting. And we got to where we really liked chatting, and we started talking more and more, and we really connected. And I had this great. It felt natural to talk to her. It felt like I was talking to this intelligent person that was interested in literature and the arts and humanity and all the things that were important to me, and she understood she understood things about, like, I could express to her why I found a certain building attractive, and she knew, she appreciated, she could understand how much that meant to me in my soul. I don't know if that's because she was a little older and a little wiser, or because she was just a naturally more mature person in general. But ought I to have considered that? Ought I to write that off? Ought I not to? Ought I not? Blunt force castration candidate 83,000 or whatever your screen name is. Ought I not to hold that as a happy memory in my mind, because I can't trust her to? I can't trust her to have been honest with me about being attracted to me, because as she ages, her SMV value diminishes by degrees. I shouldn't consider myself as having had a sincere connection with that, a real connection with that person, a real mutual attraction with that woman, because she wasn't in her early 20s. She wasn't at the absolute, like, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to prove your, or I'm saying this rhetorically, understand, I'm not suggesting people actually do this. I hate that I have to undercut my comic attempts by explaining things like this, but about a fourth of the human race operates beneath the level of mental retardation, so we have to take that into consideration. Anyway, are you saying, and again, I emphasize again, this is just sarcasm, I'm not saying actually do this, but are you supposed to, like, prove that you are considered an attractive man? Like, or put it this way, can you guarantee, is it a 100% guarantee that you're an attractive man if you get with a girl that's one day away from turning 18, and at 11:58 the two of you strip completely naked and get into position to fuck, and your penis is just hovering inches away from her vagina and everything, and you're just right there, and you're looking at the clock, and you think, you get to 11:59, and you're counting down together, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, midnight! It's your birthday, you're 18, commence legal smash! I mean, my neighbors must love it when I make these videos in the middle of the night. Anyway, is that the only true guarantee that the woman finds you attractive? Because you banged at the exact moment she became legal? And again, I have to emphasize, I'm not suggesting you go preying on 17-year-olds. I'm saying that to make a rhetorical point. If you don't know what the word rhetorical means, then you probably aren't capable of appreciating the point I was trying to make about that either. But anyway. Is that really it? I mean, is that the only way to guarantee with 100% certainty that a woman's attracted to you? And dude, don't respond to this. Don't try to make yourself look like more of a fuckwit by acting like there's greater depth to this ill-considered idiotic point that you just came up with. There's not. Unless I'm completely wrong. And romantic love, stealing my mojo, cat. Anyway, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe love is not about what you find with another person. Maybe love really is just what you prove to everybody else. And assholes like Go Fuck a Knife 9000 or whatever your screen name is, maybe they really are right, and we ought to devote ourselves to impressing people like that. And we ought to fill our heads with all of this errant paranoia telling us that we can't trust the person we're with to be genuinely attracted to us if they are not at the peak of their SMV.